All right. Good morning. It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm back for Astro Weather. Oh my God, my head is bleeding. It's like I have a phosphorescent auric breakout on the back of my skull. Wow. It's kind of an interesting moment here. Let's see if I can fix that. Hold on. Weird, very weird. If I mess around with the green screen, it probably will look very odd and different. I'm going back to the headphones. That'll kind of conceal my bedhead a little bit. How was everybody? It is the 17th of February, and Aquarius is pulling into the dock. We're about ready to embark on Pisces, and oh my, what a way to start the whole Piscean cycle with the delayed event in East Palestine, Ohio. I'm going to get into that on the show later on today here on the 11th house. I'm going to fly solo and try to really dig into East Palestine. And I'm going to try to reach out to some people on the ground there. And I have actually zero contacts, but between now and showtime, I'm going to try to find one or two people that we might get a boots on the ground kind of report from. So come back here at 12 noon Central Standard Time, and let's see what we can uncover. This is an absolute crime and travesty against. I mean, look, this is a global thing now, right? And I spent a fair amount of time last week going down the rabbit hole with Turkey and the earthquake, which is another tragedy, right? It's almost like, you know, we're in the we're in the what was it the cat with the laser toy reality. We're over here now, and you know, and I had spoken out quite in a very impassioned way about the synthetic nature of the event in Turkey, and the theoretical punishment for Turkey's stance on NATO and Erdogan playing both sides against the middle. And I was very, very outspoken against that. And I have no problem doing the same thing and turning the same kind of focus and laser beams on this country as well. So I'm really quite agnostic when it comes to, going down the rabbit hole and being very critical of the systems that are being dismantled before our very eyes. So come back here at 12 noon and let's see if we can make heads, tails about what's going on, and hopefully get some boots on the ground reportage on the show. So I'll be working on that in between now and then. So let's get into the astro weather today. You know, the other thing too, it's interesting as we move into Saturn and Pisces and the whole thing with water, right? Pisces is all water. You know, Pisces is the ocean. It's the sea. It's the rivers that empty into the sea. It's the aquifers. It's the lakes. It's the wells. Pisces is everything when it comes to water. All the water signs have their different representations. When you're dealing with Cancer, right? What are you dealing with? You're dealing with local water. You're dealing with well water. You're dealing with springs, brooks, the things that are really kind of adjacent to the area that you're living in, right? When you deal with Scorpio, you're dealing with deeper water. The intensity of big rivers and lakes that have, in some cases, almost bottomless depths, right? And then we go to Pisces, which is the greatest source of all water. So, you know, we have Saturn and Pisces coming in, and you know, it's really signaling a water crisis, right? Because when we get into the final degrees of a sign, and I've always preached this, we can tell where the major planets are moving. We could tell the events that are coming by the events that take place at those final degrees. So let's just look at Saturn and Aquarius as we wind down here, and it moves into Pisces very quickly, March 2nd, March 8th. And what are we seeing? We're seeing water crisis in East Palestine. Even the name Palestine conjures up images of Palestine and the Middle East and the Holy Land and the cradle of Christianity, right? And that's very Piscean. So this is not, it's really interesting. We talk about events on the public stage. We use the term mundane, Always found that to be quite interesting. Well, this is mundane astrology, and I kind of have an issue with it actually. You know, we're putting it into a diminutive category. Oh, it's mundane. Well, it's not really mundane. I understand the nomenclature. I understand the definition, but it's really a lot more than mundane. You know, so when we look at an event through the astrological lens, like East Palestine, we're using mundane astrology. But is it a mundane event? I would say absolutely not. We may have to come up with a new term for mundane astrology. So I'll work on that. I'll work on that. In the meantime, we can see where this is going. And with Saturn, what do we have? We have, more rules and laws and regulations. We'll have, more oversight in the problem reaction solution zone. Oh, here come the regulations now. Right. We're going to take over the water. We're going to make sure that the water is not going to be transgressed or violated. You can, if I was a betting man, and sometimes I am, you can bet on that. You can bet on Saturn and Pisces manifesting, and this is the crisis, or this is a type of crisis that ignites the Saturn and Pisces experience. Oh, look who's here, the king. Come on, king. Hit your throne. Come on up here, king. There you go. Jasper's here. Should we give a visual to all your adoring fans? There he is. The red man. How you doing, buddy? How you doing? You ready? You ready to climb into your throne? We got him this like little throne. So he could you can't even really see it, but we got this little throne thing with the idea that he could be seen easier by people. That didn't really work. He just like climbs into his little throne and curls up in a ball and dreams, cat dreams. So Saturn and Pisces on its way. It's coming. The other thing with Saturn and Pisces is the spiritual crisis. Right, the great spiritual crisis, and people are in every time Saturn's in Pisces, there's a different iteration of what happens. Anytime we have a Saturn transit, there are clues. I mean, these cycles leave clues. So the last time we had Saturn in Pisces was 94 to 97, right? 3-year period, roughly. I think. I always get it confused. It could be later 93, but it's that 3-year period. And what's interesting about that 3-year period is that's really where things start to kick off in the Balkans. And Bill Clinton, who of course becomes president of the United States in 1992. So he's starting to, go through this indoctrination in a lot of ways, right? Like whenever you watch Bill Clinton, you always get a sense that he was just kind of there for the ride. He was there for the perks. That it just feels that way. And he was there for the perks, and he was the perfect president for that time, right? Like the Democrats needed somebody really cool. At that time he was considered to be the first black president, right? Think about that now. How would that go over now? And people were singing his praises as he played saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show. Oh boy, we got a sax playing president. And he's from the South. Right. But you just got a sense he was just along for the ride, and especially in the rearview mirror. And he's there to, I think, reluctantly really oversee the operation in the Balkans through NATO. And we're back there again, right? Saturn and Pisces. Happened in Saturn and Aquarius, but the bulk of this will take place during Saturn and Pisces, just like it did then. So we can see some patterns and some cyclical repetition with Saturn. The other thing with Saturn, if we go back far enough in the 60s, those 60s, a long time ago, or so it seems, we come out of that Saturn and Aquarius phase where JFK is assassinated. And we're taken into the dark rabbit hole, right? The dark rabbit hole of Saturn and Pisces. And we have the indoctrination of drugs. LSD for a period of time is legal, but it's really moving us into the drug realm. Neptune is in Scorpio. So we have this interesting Saturn Neptune shrine, which a lot of people who were born during that time have it. I have it in my chart. And it's a white rabbit and gray slick, and you know, uh, going down the narcoticized rabbit hole. Drugs play a role with Saturn and Pisces, and we go back to the 90s, and it was well established that crack cocaine, freeze basing, and then crack cocaine comes in during Saturn and Aquarius. But by the time we get into Saturn and Pisces, it's an enterprise, right? It's a franchise business, and that's another thing that happens during that time. Another piece of Saturn and Pisces that really grabbed me, during that period is the whole Elian Gonzalez story and how he came across the ocean. And there's this whole mythology about him being sort of guided by dolphins to reach the promised land in Florida. And then he's there, and then you have this just weird scene going on with him and Castro, and resulting in this bizarre event where the troops come into his uncle's house and pull him out of the house. And there's that famous picture of him, where he's in the closet. And you've got this guy, in full on, riot SWAT gear, pointing a rifle at him, and Elian Gonzalez having this it looks like a very staged photo, if you ask me. But it's more for us than it is for Elian Gonzalez. That's the government saying we can come into your home and take your kids anytime we want. That's all very Saturn and Pisces as well, because when you get into Pisces, things dissolve. Right? Things dissolve. So the separation, the membrane between the people and the government, or the people and the state, dissolves. And there's very little between the two of them, and they can do anything they want at any time they want. Just ask Elian Gonzalez's uncle and his family, and the Cuban community in Miami, Florida. Anyway, that's just a bit of a reminiscence of Saturn and Pisces. Let's get into today. What's happening now? I'm going to bring up the chart for today. What's really striking about the energies, we're coming up again on the balsamic moon. It feels like we were just at a balsamic moon a couple of weeks ago. Hey, guess what? We were. It happens, right? So the moon is losing its power. It's losing its energy. But man, here it comes. Friday night, Moon-Pluto conjunction intensity. We have the intensity of the Moon-Pluto conjunction. The moon is in super arid and austere Capricorn, still coming into the conjunction with Pluto. The intensity is like pressure, right? It's pressure. Is the dam about to burst? Is the dam about to break? There's something here with this moon that needs to be resolved, and the squaring off. By the time we get into the evening hours, that square will be a little less heat around it, but it's that Chiron square which we went through yesterday. Emotions were vulnerable. Do you take the high road? Do you take the quiet path or the silent path, or do you risk emotionality and being vulnerable? Do you find a middle ground? That energy subsiding a bit, but tonight that Moon-Pluto conjunction, Saturn-Sun conjunction, Neptune-Venus conjunction. These conjunctions they're intense, and they all have different relationships with how we interact with so-called reality. The Sun Saturn hanging out there like a singleton, dealing with the Saturnian kind of one rule for all in Aquarius, and the coldness, right? The coldness and the sense that there is this official path, right? There's this official path to take. And Aquarius is not always the warmest sign in the world. And here we're seeing the chill of the effect where there's nothing wrong in East Palestine. The air is fine. The water is fine. To me, this is the Sun-Saturn conjunction. This is the almost sociopathologically detached nature of this aspect. And we're seeing it happen right before our very eyes, and it's shocking. It's really shocking. It's giving people a major wake-up call. If you haven't gotten the wake-up call already, well, now this is a cold slap to the face. And then we have the Venus-Neptune conjunction, right? That's coming right here. And then we're going to see Venus move into the Jupiter conjunction. The Venus-Jupiter conjunction is going to happen. It's going to peak on March 2nd. That's a very interesting conjunction. I'll talk more about that on the Sunday night show. I got to save something for Sunday night. But with Venus Neptune, we just want to bliss out. We want to be able to just escape. Sun Saturn conjunction says you can't escape. Moon Pluto conjunction as the intensity and the pressure beneath the surface of things. Now, what's interesting is the potential for reconciliation. If you can move through the depth and the intensity of your emotions, they can resolve itself with the Venus Neptune sextile. Sometimes there is a happy ending. Sometimes the hero gets the girl, right? And not just the girl, but a prize. And the girl gets the hero, which is another prize. And when we get into Venus Neptune, we're into the realm of romantic love and the entire mythos that we've inherited here in the West. So it's an interesting weekend to kind of dive into these things. By the time we get into Sunday night, Saturday night, and Sunday, that moon is moving into Aquarius. And we have this moon Mercury conjunction that we'll be experiencing Saturday and Sunday. And it's an interesting conjunction, right? You're able to operate with a little bit more clarity. The intensity of the moon Pluto conjunction pressure cooker resolves itself and people are friends again, right? No hard feelings. You're able to move on and not be attached like Velcro to whatever's happened. And there are talking points and clarity. So this is a very interesting weekend. It's a weekend that is fraught with some intensity. It's a weekend fraught with this idea, what's happening? What's happening here? Is anybody going to save us? Is anybody going to come to our rescue? Is anybody going to get up and say, we're mad as hell, we're not going to take it anymore? But with the Sun-Saturn conjunction almost floating around in this inert cloud of the singleton expression, it's going to be challenging. You have to do it, right? You have to do it. You have to figure out a way that you're a spoke on the wheel. You're the wheel and you are a spoke on the wheel. This has always been, to me, the paradox of Aquarius. You're the center of the universe, but you're not. So today, just before the show, I was hanging out in chat, and I just, it's just one of those Aquarian moments where we're all there together. And I think that's to me, that's the result of the equation, right? This is the answer, that we're all here together. And these things that we go through on a mundane level seem to be quite dark and imposing. How do we stand up against this? How do we deal with Sauron and the orcs and everything that seems to be happening to us? When you go into chat, you realize you're not alone, right? You're not alone. There are people all over this planet that are simultaneously having similar thoughts and similar feelings. Take solace in that. You're not alone. The greatest deception of our time is to get you to believe that you're alone, you're isolated, you're in an existential cage, in a box. Well, that's not true. It's clearly not true where we are now with the world, with these tools and being interconnected. And at a higher level, we're not alone. And I'm not talking about the Project Bluebeam theater that's coming to a TV screen near you. No, we're not alone. And if you really spend time, right, if you really spend time and peel away from the world, and you spend time in nature, real nature, you'll realize we're not alone. The world falls away and something else emerges. A deeper spirit comes into your consciousness and awareness. You're connected to everything. And that's a beautiful thing, right? That's the Venus-Neptune conjunction where everything just dissolves and you realize that you're a part of the fabric and the web of life, and they're a part of you as well. So it's a very interesting weekend. And got a nice moon biquintile to Mars. So you can have some emotional magic and act on it. All right, let's get into the star of the day. I didn't want to go there, but I kind of had to because his chart was so compelling. And today's star of the day is, of course, his airness, Michael Jordan. And I love this picture of Jordan because it really, in a lot of ways, says everything you need to know about him. I remember growing up and watching Michael Jordan evolve and, playing for North Carolina, hitting the big shot to win the NC2As, getting drafted by the Chicago Bulls, third pick in the draft. If you've ever seen my shows with Russ Winter, I think Russ is on the last Friday of every month, so he'll be on with me the next week. Russ Winter's father was Tex Winter, who coached Michael Jordan. He coached Michael Jordan on those championship Bulls teams. And he also coached, of course, Kobe Bryant with the Lakers. He was Phil Jackson's assistant. And Michael Jordan was not really Michael Jordan in a lot of ways until Phil Jackson and Russ's dad came along. So let's look at his chart. It's a very interesting chart. We have Jupiter on the midheaven in Pisces. It's a very interesting placement, right? Jupiter, in a lot of ways, for me, Jupiter is always related to some degree of sport. It's expansion. It's a fire. Jupiter itself as a planet is fiery, right? And sport is connected to fire. Aries, the warrior. Leo, the performer. When we get into Sagittarius, we get into the great minds like Bill Walsh, the coach of the 49ers, the great strategist, innovating football, and using a new catechism for how the game is played. So here, Jupiter in dignity in his ninth house conjuncts his midheaven. Michael Jordan is going to be a star, right? This is the makeup of his chart. 28 degrees Aquarius. He'll be known for flying through the air. He's at that very intense and volatile degree of the sign just before it goes dark. But who is Michael Jordan? I looked at his chart and I was asking myself this question: who is he? Because I think when we look at his chart, we get a sense that we don't really know him. We have the highlight reels, right? They're all there. We have the Last Dance documentary, which it was a year-long process where they were following him and the Chicago Bulls as they were beginning to go through the final season to win the championship and then break the team up. But we still don't really know who Michael Jordan is. And there are things that I know about Michael Jordan. Number one, he had a problem with gambling. Can we see that in his chart? Jupiter in the midheaven. Jupiter's a gambler. Take a chance, right? Saturn says be conservative. Take your winnings and walk away from the table. Jupiter says I'll play another round, right? So he has Jupiter on the midheaven in Pisces. So when you get into Pisces, you can get into Jupiter in Pisces. If it's aspected in a way that is challenged or negative, you can go into debt. And Jordan would bet on anything. He would bet on anything, whether it was a round of golf, whether it was a shot. He would bet on whether or not the waitress at a restaurant would forget to bring the water. Right. That's how competitive Michael Jordan was, and in a lot of ways addicted to gambling. So we see addiction and we see compulsion when it comes to Pluto. Right. So we have a Pluto opposition to Jupiter in his chart. So we get into the whole compulsive kind of relationship here with Pluto. And sometimes Jordan wins and sometimes he doesn't win. At the end of the day, I guess he's on the winning side of life. He's got an NBA team. He gets to do whatever the hell he wants. Was there a price to pay for that? I would think so. I always found it interesting, the story of Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan, who winds up in the backwoods somewhere. Was it South Carolina? Somewhere in the South. He gets killed. Look at where Saturn is. It's in the eighth house. That's the father, the underworld, right? And we have Mars over here. We have Mars in opposition with Saturn, Mars and Leo, retrograde. Was that a payback? Did Michael Jordan welch on some of his bets? There's always been this other script going on that Jordan is one of the recipients of the blessings of the quote unquote Illuminati. And when we get into that, we get into things like sacrifice, right? The sacrifice of a mother or a brother, a father or a lover, right? So, was that part of it, or was the Mars Saturn opposition a fait accompli that it was going to happen with Saturn in his eighth house? Here we see the square with Saturn and the square with Mars and Neptune in the fifth house. What is the fifth house? It's gambling. The fifth house is related to sport and pastime and gambling, and there's Neptune there. There's a price to pay. Other than Jordan's opposition with the sun to Uranus, who is he? I don't think we really know. For somebody who's as public and has lived most of his life on TV, the thing about Jordan that sets him apart in a lot of ways from other famous athletes is the amount of tape that they have on Jordan. I mean, you could go back to his college games and see him, right? And then the legend of Jordan gets played out. It almost extends into the internet age. It's very hard to go back in time. I mean, it's there. You can find things on people like Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, Joe Louis, Mickey Mantle, but not to the extent that you can find with Jordan, right? The documentation is there. So again, he's a paradoxical kind of Aquarius. Like, we see his life get played out. And to this day, he's still considered the greatest all time in basketball. But do we really know him? Do we know what really makes the man tick? I don't think we do. And again, that's the paradox of Aquarius. His Venus is in Capricorn. I don't know if you've seen Michael Jordan's latest wife, considerably younger. That's a Venus in the seventh house Capricorn move. He's got that moon in Sagittarius in the sixth house. Again, this is, we're in the realm of gambling and risk, squaring Jupiter. That moon is squaring Uranus and Pluto. And Michael Jordan was somebody who would use anything, right? Anything that he could to get an edge on somebody. He would have the slightest provocation, whatever it was, he would use that and turn that into a grudge in a lot of ways. We can see that with the moon here, the moon Pluto square. He doesn't forget. He doesn't forget if somebody scored 30 on him the last time they played. Oh, he'll remember with the moon Pluto square. He's an interesting character. But who is he? Who is Michael Jordan? I don't think we'll ever really know. And for a good reason. Because a lot of the things that we would know or could know or should know about Michael Jordan would take away the myth. Right? So he occupies a space in our collective imagination that people like Paul Bunyan, right, or Daniel Boone, or even more recent examples, Muhammad Ali. These people are archetypes, and sometimes when you know too much about an archetype, it begins to dissipate their aura, for better or worse. The other thing is that Michael Jordan puts Nike on the map with the Air Jordans. He puts them on the map, and that's also very much Jupiter on his midheaven, right? It's expansive. It's opportunities. He's looking for opportunities. He's got that Mars in conjunct with Jupiter. In conjunct with Chiron. My bad. Saturn's also, to me, Saturn's also very much Nike as well. And a lot of that in the eighth house resolves itself with the sun in the ninth house. It has that kind of international appeal. Michael Jordan is global. Honestly, when I was growing up, I was a Pistons fan. And I hated it when the Bulls beat the Pistons and they passed the torch uh, without a lot of grace and aplomb to the Bulls. When the Bulls beat them, they walked off the court. They didn't even shake their hands. Somehow that's appropriate for Michael Jordan. And I think deep down inside, he probably understood and appreciated it in his own very paradoxical and anachronistic way. All right. A little bit of housekeeping here. I was on my friend Giuseppe's show yesterday, and I want to give Giuseppe some love because this guy just does yeoman's work with his show. I'm on there once a month, and I think he's criminally underserved, with his show and the work that he does. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Giuseppe, his website. So this is RT Media, or I'm sorry, Tide Media. This is where you can find a lot of his shows. And I just want to give a shout out to Giuseppe. He's extremely hardworking. He's a great host, and some of the time, Rising Tide Media. Sometimes he'll have content that is very confrontational and get you to really, it'll jolt you, right? But I know the man, and his heart is impeccable, and he does a great job hosting this show. So check him out, and he's over on Rumble and I think Rockfin. So he streams across a number of platforms. Our Tide Media or risingtidemedia.com. I just did a show with him yesterday, and you can check that out as well. Read in some astrology. All right. truehempscience.com/ref/23 for some of the best hemp products that you can get on the internet. Type in 15MINS and you will get a little bit of a booty package, right? You'll get your free product, a little Christmas stocking when your order arrives, and $150 or more, and you get free shipping. Please come back here and join me at 12 noon with the Friday Farcast. I'll be flying solo, and hopefully I'll have some traction with some interviews or some people I can talk to on the ground in East Palestine, Ohio, as we enter Saturn in Pisces, Pluto in Aquarius. Ladies and gentlemen, times, they are changing. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to set what's possible. Chat Taria, everybody in there, thank you so much. You're the best. Mods, you're the best.